Wolfclock Productions, Wolfclock here. You might know me from this, or this. And welcome to Betafied Mini, the mini-series for things that aren't quite big enough for a full-size Betafied. Today we're going to be talking about Well from Team Fortress 2. But before we get into that, take a look at this. You see that? If you could, turn those numbers up a little bit, it would be much appreciated. Anyway, let's get on to the video. Many people already know that Well, which was released with the final version of the game, was once a map in Team Fortress Classic. In the Team Fortress Classic version of the map, Well is seen at nighttime, as opposed to Team Fortress 2, which is seen in the day. However, this may have not always been the case. In June of 2020, an early version of Postal 3 was leaked to the public. This included code as well as the assets from both Postal 3 and an early version of Team Fortress 2 from June of 2007. In these early files, we can note a couple of major differences compared to the final version of the game. In regards to the map Well, some of the most notable differences are the addition of an unused skybox texture which we do not have in the final game's files, as well as earlier versions of Well's particles that are seen in the skybox. When Team Fortress 2 launched in October of 2007, there were no nighttime maps in the files. In addition to this, these old unused skyboxes were removed entirely, meaning that this old, dark nighttime skybox is only ever seen in this June build of the game. Here is a proof of concept level that I made, showcasing what Well could have looked like if it had used this earlier skybox. However, we have only reviewed half of the evidence, so let's go on to the particles. As you can see, using the final versions of the particles leads to not so great results. But, when we replace the texture of the particles with the version from Postal 3, we can see that the effect is much darker and more fitting for a nighttime aesthetic. Furthermore, we know that it is not a mistake that these were the particles being used in Well at the time, as in the Postal 3 build of the game, if we take a look at the texture that's used to show the pictures of the map while loading into it, we can see that these black particles are used here as well. Finally, when we take a look at the final version of Well itself, you can note that outside there are a lot of different locations where there are light models just sitting there, either being unused or only being used on the darker side of the map. This also suggests that this map may have once had a nighttime aesthetic and was simply changed to daytime, with the lights being removed. So, to conclude, with the fact that there is an unused nighttime skybox in the Postal 3 build of the game, the fact that there are light models all over the outside area of Well in the final game, and the fact that the particles were originally darker and more fitting for a nighttime aesthetic, it is reasonable to conclude that Well was initially going to be nighttime, just like its Team Fortress Classic counterpart. In the description, I've linked my recreation of this nighttime version of Well, or at least how I think it may have looked. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video, whenever it may be.